Hey, folks. I'm pretty excited to bring some attention to some new project resources that I put out there for TypeDoc. My name is Michael Leahy. I've been doing a lot of modern web development related things, but I recently released this theme. It's kind of like a default. So it augments the default theme of TypeDoc, and it fixes several issues, particularly for like large project documentation generation. Um, what I used it for is to generate. So I have a separate project that generates API documentation for all the built-in TypeScript library declarations. And this is very useful. I mean, not only as a resource, but it you can link it to your actual project. And when you're generating documentation, like all the symbols in the DOM and the ES 2023 declarations, including WebXR, WebCodecs, and WebGPU, I included those as well. As I view those as very up and coming, if not already arrived, modern resources. So if you're using TypeDoc to generate your documentation, uh, one of the problems with the current default theme is that it takes a very, very large amount of file space or disk space for generating this like left-hand navigation um, panel. Like every single static HTML page or document page duplicates all of the HTML that's used to generate this index. And with the DOM library here, it actually, with the default theme, is 1.4 gigabytes. And that's way too large to host on GitHub pages or other stuff. So anybody that has like large projects, things don't work too well with the default theme for TypeDoc. So my default modern theme augments the output of the default theme. I've made some stylistic changes just to make things a little bit nicer. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's jump over to array or something so you can see some functions. Just making things just a little bit nicer to look at with some color and background aspects. The on this page section is scrollable and doesn't. It's just a little bit nicer. So one thing that you're going to notice here for the tslib declaration APIs that I've created, I cross-link all the symbols in the tslib declarations with the MDN browser compatibility package, and so that allows, like, there's an extra little web component here in the tslib docs to jump to the MDN documentation. Not only that, you can jump to the specification right away as well. And so that's just like an extra little handy bonus to all these tslib docs. But so let's see here. Like, oh yeah, I'll talk about with the default modern theme. There's a couple keyboard keys. I also so before I jump ahead too far, the navigation. So I solved the disk space issue with the default theme by caching the navigation HTML, and on the fly when you generate docs, it'll create a web component that contains the navigation, and that's all that's referenced across all the different static HTML pages. So like you only generate this content once across everything. And in the case of the DOM library, that shaves off 1.2 gigabytes of data. The DOM library goes from 1.4 gigabytes down to 137 megabytes. One thing I did too is for the search index, like say the DOM library search index is 17 megabytes. And that would be a package that people would receive the first time they load up the docs. So I used message pack and compression to compress the index. And again, it's something like 1.5 megabytes versus 17. So it just drastically improves the bandwidth requirements. And one other fantastic thing is that it makes the doc generation 80% faster. So I've also just kind of used like a custom svelte component up here too, that just makes it a little bit nicer to use the search. And I just put in XR so you can kind of see all the WebXR stuff that's included here. And again, you have all the nice linking to MDN for everything. So it's definitely fantastic. Now for so I jumped over, so like I have my own personal project that is pretty big, and so I really wanted to create end-to-end documentation with it, and that was a big impetus for creating the TSLib built-in API docs. And here's just an example. I mean, I do export some other third-party packages in my integrated framework, but one that's probably like good to look at just to see how that linking works. So I have not only generated this with the default modern theme, but also the TSLib docs has its own npm package and TypeDoc plugins to associate the hosted TSLib declaration docs as well. But yeah, let's just go over here and look at like the quick LRU. This is so normally when you generate documentation, if you reference anything from like the built-in libs, like in this case, quick LRU extends from map, and here we have like iterable too. So like you can click on map and it will load up the like it just directly links things to the built-in libs. Again, this is gonna be like just a very quick overview. I just want to let people know that these resources are out there. So I'll include everything in the description of the video. And so when you install, you just need to install the TypeDoc theme DMT. If you're linking with the TSLib docs, you'll also include this package. I'm not necessarily using Simver. I am using the date that the docs were generated for the version number. And down in the TypeDoc configuration JSON, you just, if you want to use the theme, you don't have to in your own documentation. But if you do, then your documentation is going to look, exactly like the linked TSLib docs as well. So it kind of provides a little bit of coherency there. But then, yeah, you just, depending on the libraries that you want to link, typically that would be like the DOM and ESM libraries if you're doing like something web related. But there's also a web worker version as well of the built-in lib declarations. And, you'd want to choose DOM or the worker. You wouldn't use both at the same time. But anyway, cool. I just want to kind of like wrap this up. Like I didn't really go through. I guess it's worth mentioning. Certainly read the README of the TypeDoc theme DMT. There are a couple extra configuration options that are nice. One thing that I definitely need to mention, there's a new undocumented feature or option in TypeDoc that is important to set here to get the full navigation tree. Unfortunately, this was added in 0.24.8 and it defaults to false. So it doesn't so like here, like it doesn't render all of the internal, like it'll just render like the top level namespace. So like you're going to want to include this navigation full tree true in your documentation, because the default modern theme, what I've put together, it caches all that navigation there. So you want the full tree for sure to show up. Yeah, if there's any questions, get in touch. I just wanted to get this out here and let people know about this really great new theme augmentation for TypeDoc, and it solves the problems for anybody that has very large projects. And we're currently having problem with the disk space size for the generated documentation. Oh, it's also 80% faster too, which is really awesome. Anyway, cool. Thanks, guys.